Hello everybody, James here, story time with Dutch Mantell, and it is episode 100. Can you believe that? To celebrate this episode, how can we not have a special guest? But I'm not going to introduce her. Dutch Mantell himself is going to introduce her. So Dutch, over to you.
Well, for our 100th episode, we had to have a special guest. We just couldn't have just a regular person. We had to have somebody who I highly respect and their talent and just being around them and a good person. And I would like to welcome for the first time on the Story Time with Dutch, Miss Gail Kim. Gail, how you doing?
I'm so thrilled to be on your 100th episode. Congratulations, you guys. That's quite an accomplishment. Not surprised at all. Dutch, you must have some good stories.
Well, I try to keep them good. And I had kind of forgotten till James told me we were coming up on the 100th episode. And I said, well, I got to get somebody. And I got you like almost in record time.
Yes,
I started looking and James brought up, he says, Gail Kim would be a great guest. I said, well, and I didn't have a number on you or the email address on you, and James did. He sent it to me, and that's how we hooked up. But I'm glad you're here because we have a little bit of history together,
yes.
and you have a lot of stuff. I remember you used to tell stories like when we were together in TNA, and I'd stop and listen because you had some great stories. So to catch everybody up on your background,
yeah,
you're from Canada, right?
Yes, I'm a Canadian girl.
And you have citizenship in Canada and the United States. So you are dual citizen.
I am a dual citizen, which is awesome.
That is.
It is so great when you travel, to be honest. So you don't have to deal with all the customs and the officers there with maybe some power trips.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through it all there, but so it makes life easy. Yeah.
Okay. In reading your bio, you trained in OVW for a while?
I did after I got signed with WWE. So I trained with Ron Hutchison first. And then one of the guys that trained with Ron opened up a lucha school. And so I'd already kind of gotten all my fundamentals and learned my psychology and kind of was, I already started matches. So I really just wanted to sharpen up my other skills in terms of wrestling styles that influenced me, which was Japanese and Mexican wrestling as well. But those kind of moves influenced me. But I've always been a stickler for American psychology. Like that's what I love is American psychology when it comes to wrestling.
And what made you want to get into wrestling?
I mean, I think what everyone, every wrestler pretty much is a wrestling fan at some point in their life. And I watched it when everyone watched wrestling, it was the days of the Hulkster, Bret Hart, and, when everybody watched wrestling, literally Saturday night's main event, you're, as a kid, you're just struggling to stay awake on those special nights once a month. And then I kind of fell out of it. And then when I was in college, I was switching the channels and I got caught up on a storyline that wasn't even had nothing to do with the women's division. But at the time, they were just starting to have the women wrestle a lot more. It was like the Trish, the Victorias, the Ivory, Molly, Jackie, everyone, that golden era of women. And I fell in love with the wrestling part of the business. I really fell in love with the sport of wrestling. And so found a wrestling school and the rest was history, as we say. I was just very fortunate.
So you trained around Rip Rogers.
Yes, after the fact. Yes.
Jimmy Cornette.
Yes.
And Kenny Bolin.
Yes, I did. Yes, those are my days.
Okay, you got to tell us a Cornette story.
Well, with Cornette, I only have good stories. Like I don't know. I love.
Oh, I want to tell you something about Cornette. Okay. He is the only one, really.
Yes.
And on my this hand that he's never said anything bad about. Apparently, you impressed him.
Or me?
No, you.
Oh, me. Okay.
Oh, he has never said anything bad or negative about you at all.
Yeah. We've
And
had
if
experiences.
that doesn't take in too many people because he's knocked everybody.
Has he? Well, then I feel very honored.
So
Um,
any Jimmy stories?
yeah. So Jim Cornette, OVW. And then when I came to, so I had experiences with Jim Cornette in WWE and TNA, but I'll say the more close relationship I had was when he was my agent in TNA. And this was pre-Knockouts division days. So this is when Jackie was just brought in to kind of test the waters of the women's division. And so he was my first agent that I can clearly remember because I begged for a steel cage match with Jackie Moore. And I remember he was my agent because he gave us the finish for that match. And I was still green at that point too, if we're really being honest here. I probably, because people think that it takes a couple of years for you to be really comfortable and to lead in that ring. It can take quite
It
long
can.
time. Yeah, it took me, I would say about the 8-year mark is when I really remember feeling very comfortable. And so Jim Cornette at that time, that was when I was just wrestling, and that's all I really knew. And Jim Cornette was like, how about this, Gail? At the end of that match, you have this thing won and you're about to step out that door. And then you just look at that crowd and then you go, no way. And you slam the door and you go up to the top. And I think it's my real first time with a producer where it just clicked in, like the storytelling aspect. It wasn't just about the wrestling moves and how can you really get that crowd. And boy, did I hear it and feel it. And at the end of that match, I remember the crowd really coming and exploding. And I just remember when I had my beauty at the end of that, after my hand got raised, I remember going to the crowd and, really feeling them. And I think wrestlers, when you have those certain moments in your career where you finally get them and you feel it and you do something for that reaction, you see that it works, it kind of clicks. That was one of my first clear moments. And so it always sticks with you. And that's why when I'm producing now, when I tell one of the girls, for example, Jordynne Grace, when she started with us, for the longest time, I would tell her, I'm just not feeling any emotion. Like you got to give something. And they want to feel that emotional reaction or the intimacy. And she had this real moment of emotion. And I said, did you hear the crowd react when you did? And she said, yeah, I actually did. And she kept on doing it from that point on. That was that moment for me, the same thing. When you finally get it, that you can kind of control the crowd in some ways.
When you're training somebody, that's one of the hardest things to get across. Because even when I started with Swagger, he would do things. I said, don't do that. I mean, they told us, don't play the people. I went, don't play the people. Yeah. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Yeah. I said, do you see Vince McMahon come down step? We'll get back to him in just a minute. You see Vince McMahon coming to the ring? He's playing them for all they're worth. His hands is this. I said, that's what they're there for. They want to be played. Yes, but I call it, I tell young wrestlers, it's like a comedian. You go on stage, you got to feel the heat in that room. Yeah. You got to feel that temperature. And I've seen one comedian, he would go to one corner, then he'd go to another corner. And then he said, well, I'm just feeling where I'm getting the most reaction, what corner. And if I get a reaction, I'll stay in this corner and do my whole routine. Give me a Rip Rogers story.
Oh, Rip, I was just terrified, to be honest, because when you first got thrown into OVW, you just hear all these, his reputation, right? And at that time, you got to remember women's wrestling was not strong. It was quite a lull in women's wrestling. Like it wasn't really a huge thing.
What year was this?
2000, probably 2004, maybe.
Really?
Yeah. And then there was wrestling. No, sorry. I got signed in 2003. So yeah, around 2004, I would say around there. It wasn't the strongest. They were kind of like going back in these ups and downs of women's wrestling. And I remember there was hardly any girls in OVW. There was a couple of us. And so he'd always throw two people in the ring, tell them to go call a match. And the thing he was most known for is saying, okay, stop. get the fuck out of the ring. You know, and people would, get the fuck out of the ring. And so I was just praying to God I never get a get the fuck out of the ring from him. And guess what? I never did. So
he is a character.
Yes, he is a character, but I adore him. He always trained properly.
Gail, can I ask you? We don't use the C word on this channel because apparently it contravenes YouTube guidelines. But how many times did Rip use that on that particular word on a average day? I
never heard that word.
You're
I don't
kidding.
think. No, I heard the F word way more. and so, I would remember it because I feel like that back then it was much more controversial. So I think it's a more common now because, you know, the Brits, the Australian, everyone uses it as a common word.
It's a term of endearment over here, I'll tell you.
Yes.
But Rip was notorious for really being hard on females. Yes?
Yes, he was, but I was very lucky. And I was green, like I said. So maybe he saw some potential in me and didn't want to come as hard, or maybe he thought I was the best out of the shittiest. I don't.
That's funny because I've never heard you say that word.
I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it.
What about Kenny Bolin? We had him on here. You talk about a talker.
Yeah.
I mean, we should have been paid by the word because he's an interesting guy to talk to. So how was your relationship with him?
I mean, it was just a work relationship, to be honest. And to be clear, when I went to Louisville, Kentucky, they brought me up on the road at the same time simultaneously. So I never did a full OVW training. Like I wasn't there every day. And then they never really even put me on the shows because I was being used at the same time on the road. So they didn't want to put me in a storyline in OVW to, you know, for their TV. So I was kind of there, just kind of training maybe 1 to 2 days a week, if that, when I was off the road. So I didn't have a strong relationship within everyone at OVW. It was more of a, you know, ships passing in the night kind of thing, unless I was one-on-one, like with a Rip Rogers training when I was there.
Okay,
and
you
Jim
mentioned
Cornette Jim Cornette only got the relationship in TNA more.
You mentioned you started in 2004.
I mean, I started training in 2000, got signed by WWE after 2 years, at the end of 2 full years. Technically started with them in 2003.
So when did I meet you? 2007?
Yeah. I'd say about there. 2000. When did we start on Spike TV? The very first episode.
Whenever. Don't bother me with dates because I don't know.
I don't remember dates either. That's why I'm asking you.
But you know, I didn't know that much about you, but I saw you work and I said, I thought you'd been at least 10 years experience.
Oh yeah, no.
Because you must have speeded it up or picked it up a lot earlier than most people do, because you were out there leading matches and you were doing all kind of stuff that I was impressed, really. Okay, when you were in WWE, you ran across Vince McMahon quite a bit.
I mean, I would say not quite a bit because he kind of always stayed to himself. I would say, like,
he did. But any relationship with him or any one-on-ones or?
Never. I mean, maybe in passing, kind of. I don't know. He was hard to get to, you know, and you always had those people always say, you got to go talk to Vince, like when you're not being used or when you wanted to pitch something, and people would literally wait, you know, outside his office hoping to get him
4 hours.
Yeah. And I remember the one time I attempted to do that, I got blocked by one of the writers and he was like, yep, no, he's busy. You can't be here. You can't do that. So I never tried again after that. It was like my one shot I tried at. And I guess I should have tried again, to be honest, but I didn't. It was very intimidating.
Yeah, it was weird when people wanted to talk to him, they would form a little line.
Yeah.
Outside his office, whatever office he was in, and they would sit down and they would park themselves there for sometimes 2 or 3 hours. I remember I was there.
Maybe I didn't try hard.
Well, I wanted to talk to him several times too. Got in once.
Yeah.
And he brought in some more people. So my part was cut short.
Yeah.
And then he was trying to tell me something. And I don't know. I thought Vince was some hallucinogenics or something because he was weird that day. I always felt funny being around him anyway.
Interesting to hear because you never know. I thought maybe you would have had a good relationship with him.
Okay. From the early days of women's wrestling when you started till today.
Yeah.
What is the main difference?
Ooh, today is what I dreamt. So when we started our division, what women's wrestling is today is what I truly dreamt it could be. So I'd say the only thing that's probably lacking right now that I hear is, it's getting better slowly, is the pay, right? So I'd love for the women to get paid equally as the men. Like if you're going to do a main event at WrestleMania, I would hope that you're going to get paid the same as the men who are going to wrestle the main event.
So the pay is lower for the females?
I think it's getting better from what I hear. I mean, us wrestlers don't really talk about pay too much because it is kind of more individually, you're a contractor. So everyone kind of has, on the most part, different contracts. And so we don't talk about it so much, but once in a while you hear things. And you just want this is what I always tell everyone, because everyone kind of says, oh, you win. And I did bet on myself a lot of the time in my career, and I'd leave when I wasn't happy. But I also was never put in a position where I was getting offered $500,000 to stay somewhere. For me, my decision was never based on money. It was always based on what I wanted to do. When I went back to WWE the second time, I was just like, whoa, okay, well, I just didn't get used for 3 years, the same experience that I had the first time. Why am I going to waste 3 more years? I'm 30 something years old. My clock is ticking. I got to go show the fans what I got, So that was an easy decision for me because I wasn't being offered $1 million a year or whatever it was. Who knows what would have been. I'm kind of glad now I didn't make a lot of money in my career, to be honest, because it did make me take all these risks,
Well, you were criminally underused in WWE. I'll say that. So you know who gave me the idea for the knockouts?
What?
I'd had the idea,
yes.
But you.
yes.
You told me one time I was talking to you in one of those encounters passing in the hallway, and you told me your idea of what you wanted it to be, and I agreed with you.
Yeah.
Because I thought, if women can play professional basketball and soccer and softball or whatever, why can't we have a true professional wrestling league of women? So when they go out there and do the same thing as the men, instead of doing the gimmick matches, the bras and the panties, and you told me that, and I said, well, if I could get the girls, and you said, and you introduced me to Kong.
Yes.
And I said, who is she? I never even heard of her.
Because I didn't even know who she was. I just had heard about her so much. And I was like,
oh, so you didn't even know her either?
Well, I didn't know her in person. I had only known of her work. And actually, Loki was the one that told me about her.
Yeah.
And then you and I had discussed the women's division, and we're talking about what girls can we bring in? I was like, this girl sounds amazing, pardon the pun, because she was amazing Kong back then. And I was just like, she's different. She sounds like a monster. And everyone's saying how great she is, sight unseen. I was like, let's bring her in. And then you were interested. You're like, that sounds great. And then we brought in pretty much 10 girls, I think, overnight. And
were you talking to Kong then? Did you get on the phone with her or get her number?
The first, I don't know how she got brought in. Maybe we told Loki. I can't remember those details. I just remember I'm
thinking now, how did she get in? I guess she just walked in one day. Oh, there you are. What the hell?
We made a list of 10 girls or 12 girls, called them, made a
But
gauntlet, and it
But
just
you know, the whole time in TNA, I would bring this up to Dixie and to Vince and to Jeff. They didn't fall all over themselves in agreement. They was going, you know, I don't know. I don't even know where you would get the girls. And Jeff asked me one day, he said, do you think we can find enough girls that could fill it up? I said, oh, wait a minute. Let me check. Last time I looked at the population, there's 320 million people in this country. I think out of 160 million girls, I think that'd be half that 320. We can find 10 women that can get in there. And when you told me about Kong, I went that night, and through the beauty of the internet, I found Kong with a match with one of the really, really tough girls in Japan. Now, if I didn't know that was a work, I'd say these girls are throwing down.
Yeah,
they are beating and they probably were beating the crap out of each other.
They were.
And I told you, I think the next week or the next time we had TV, I said, I want Kong. You said, when do you want her? I said, yesterday. So let's get her here as fast as we can get her here. And you and her had never had a match before.
You guys were the ones that threw. So before the gauntlet happened in Atlanta for the title, we had a a taste of the women's division, I guess you could say. And you put me and Kong in a singles match right before the pay-per-view. And we had a lumberjill match with all the new girls that were going to participate in this gauntlet. And that was the night that I remember her and I just had instant chemistry. We just did a simple match. And I just remember Scott, I believe, telling me after, oh, Jeff just loves you and Kong together. He just loved what and then we kind of just went with that. But prior to that, he brought in Jackie Moore for me to wrestle with, and we had incredible too.
You did.
So we beat the living crap out of each other, her and I loved every moment of it.
You guys had great matches.
Yeah.
I mean, great matches.
So it was good.
You remember the first meeting I had with the Knockouts?
I don't remember, but I do remember you telling me when the title was coming. And I remember screaming out loud, like a little, like the whole arena. It was like one of those, it was a TV taping. And so all the boys were out by the ring, the normal crew, everyone kind of hanging out there. And you told me that they're going to bring a title and we're starting a women's division finally. And it was like, when you just hoping for something for years, and it's like about a year and a half at this point. And so I screamed for joy, and it was just dream come true. And then that's when the real work really begins, because you know what? The work never ended, to be honest. It was always a constant trying to prove ourselves that we were good enough.
But see, if you love it, it's not work.
Correct.
It's a labor of love. And you guys did it great. So I remember the first time I brought all you girls together, and I said, girls, from this point on, what words can I say, James?
Or the C word. Or you'd say it, I'll bleep it out afterwards if you must.
I said, from this point going forward, you're no longer bitches and any kind of that. I said, no, you're not that anymore. You're athletes, and I want you to go out there and I want you to beat these guys' ass. And you guys, and the early knockouts were unusual for a group of women. You guys didn't fight or bitch or argue. You supported each other. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
But when you and Kong would go out there, you would turn it on. The first time people were talking about WWE having two women do the main event on Raw or do the main event somewhere. I said, hell, I did that with Gail and Kong. The rating you guys did?
I mean,
it was a record, and it's still to this day the number 2 record in TNA or Impact or whatever they were calling it then. Hulk Hogan, when his first time he came in, he topped the record, but you guys went main event. You went about 30 minutes.
I don't know.
TV.
I watch Dutch. I don't know if I've ever gotten that.
I remember, but you guys, I still remember the rating. It was a 3.46.
Yeah. Oh,
if it'd been a 5, he would have jumped us to a 4.
So interesting if you think about it now, because if you look at the playing field of ratings, and of course streaming has come into play and all that. People used to crap all over us, and we're on Spike TV pulling in 1 million viewers a week or whatever it was. I mean, we were doing great.
You guys pulled in 2.5 million.
Oh, well, that's awesome. That's quite.
And man, I stuck it up their butts too. I said, "Oh, let's don't talk about the girls. Nobody wanted them till they started doing a number."
I'm just happy.
The show Sting, we'd put Sting and AJ Styles on main event. Yeah. They do a little measly 2.6. And then we'd stick you and Kong out there, and we'd go over 3.
No, that's awesome.
We told the story. I remember the first time we brought Kong in. Nobody had ever even seen a picture of her.
I know.
And she had some great music.
Yeah.
And when she came out there, and we were in what park were we in? Not Disney. What were
Universal? Was it?
We was in Universal.
Oh yeah.
And those people are tourists. They just said, well, and they went to it free, and they all looked at Kong. What the hell is this?
Yeah.
And man, she would go in the ring, and people would feel sorry automatically for her opponent. But who's going to beat that woman? Nobody. Yeah. But you were a great underdog. You and Kong meshed beautifully. And see, James, all I had to do with Gail and Kong is just give them the finish. And it was a simple finish. They do everything else. That's the way it's supposed to be done. Now, if I'd have known you'd only had like 6 years experience, I may have set more in, but hell, you had it. I said, I'm not going to mess it up by going in there because they know what they can do. But you did a great job with Kong. When's the last time you talked to her?
So last year we were in the ring together for the 1000th episode for TNA Impact. So that was really special. And then she did the comeback. She got the finish. And when I went back in there for the finish after the 1, 2, 3, and she was like kind of hunched over, kind of.
Who's that?
Kong.
Yeah. Okay.
And I hugged her, and I could hear her sobbing from happiness because she hadn't been in the ring for so long. It's been just so great. We've really been able to come full circle. Even when she retired, we did Mickey's Empower pay-per-view together. We had that final moment together there. And then we had the 1000th episode where we both hadn't wrestled for 5 years minimum. And we both got to do that special episode. I mean, we've been really lucky. She's always going to be like part of my heart. You know what I mean? Like, we'll always have that bond and connection no matter what, to share all those special moments together. And of course, with you and Scott, you guys were both our agents during that time. And I think Kong was Simon Diamond was our agent later on. You guys were there for the beginning when all the magic happened. It's just something we'll always be able to be, something we're always going to be proud of, all of us.
The reason it worked is I let you guys do what you do best. I didn't try to gimmick it up. I didn't try to embarrass you. You guys went out there and kicked ass, and the people responded. And imagine that, people responding to 2 women out there that they have tried to degrade all these years, and all of a sudden you do something with them, and they kind of believe it. The fans enjoyed it. I'm going to tell you a story. My sister, she passed away now, but she was my older sister. She didn't like wrestling. She would talk about it, and she'd be respectful. And somebody bring up wrestling, she'd go, oh, yeah, whatever. But when she saw you and Kong, and the only reason she saw it is because her grandson watched the show, and he said, Grandma, what's this? And she came in there, and she fell in love with you and Kong. So from every episode going forward, she wouldn't watch the show till one of the girls come on, you or Khan, and then he'd say, Grandma, Gail Kim's on. Oh, I got to see this. Or Kong's on. Oh, I got to see this. She would sit down. She would watch the match or whatever we had planned for you guys. But when it was over, she'd get up and leave and go back outside and do whatever she was doing. She was really a picky fan. But to capture my sister, you guys were, well, you knew what you had to do. And I think you captured a lot more people than what you realized.
I think what you just said, that you guys literally, let's look at the Bloodline storyline, for example, on WWE right now. But the same thing, I think it's kind of a lost thing where you guys took it slow. You did the right thing and built the storyline basic, the way it's supposed to be, and simple to allow the fans to really get sucked in, right? And they had never seen anything. The women's wrestling hadn't been really seen for a while, at least at that kind of level or that kind of attention. And also, I mean, the fact that it was David and Goliath, pretty much, you couldn't have asked for a better heel and babyface position, to be honest, right? So, and it was cool that TNA never even batted an eye at the fact that I was an Asian woman and she was a Black woman, and we were like the face at that time for that women's division, and it was nothing. It was just about Gail Kim and Awesome Kong. It wasn't really about anything else, So that's cool.
Well, you got the job done. I'll say that. And I would go to creative meetings and I'd sit there and I'd say, "What was the ratings last week?" They're pretty good. What did the knockouts do? I'd make them read it to me. Oh, really? Well, they should have been a little higher, but I guess that's okay. I'd have to rub it in.
Just happy.
I was glad you guys were there because I was proving a point. You were proving a point. Kong was proving a point, and we were doing business.
Yes.
So when did you leave TNA?
So then I left after that 3-year mark. So that was 2000. So we started, I think, in 2006 with Spike. If that's correct, then I left in 2009. If not, then it was 2007 to 10. I'm always gray in those areas. But I did the full 3 years. Fortunately, after Kong and I had proven ourselves, my contract was up. And unfortunately, I was still in my prime of my career. And so I just wasn't offered anything really that I could live on, to be honest, at that time. I owed more money than I was being offered, to be truthful. And I told everyone that at that time. It's nothing that hasn't been said before.
So you wanted more money out of TNA, and they sandbagged you.
At that time, yes.
Yeah, and so did Khan.
Yeah.
She asked the same thing. And I don't blame you girls at all.
You only have
because if you had known what some people were making there, hell, y'all have left long before then.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize it. I figured, well, that's your deal.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I would think that if you asked for more money and Kong asked for more money, they would be a little bit more courteous and respectful of what you'd done.
I thought so too. I thought so too.
I agree that.
Yeah.
I agree to that. So you went to WWE, and how was it there?
It was the same.
Same thing, different day.
Hey, listen, but because I was so green on that first run, then I did my thing with Kong in the Knockouts division. I really did feel optimistic. I felt like I'm wiser, I'm more experienced. I've already been through the WWE system. I got this, you go in there thinking and hoping for the best. And so started off and then kind of went back to what I started with it, because they kind of went back to all these gimmick matches that were like swimsuit spectacular, Baywatch match, legs match. I mean, I was doing every gimmick match that was not a steel cage, a hardcore match, like total opposite gimmick matches. And so, I was a little bit more patient the second time, and I thought, let's just hope for the best. And then it's normally around the year 2 mark that you're kind of like, okay, things are obviously not going to change. And you're very realistic too, because by the second point, I am stronger and more confident to go ask people, hey, what am I doing wrong here? What can I do? I've pitched ideas. I've done everything you asked me to do. And then, you kind of read between the lines and you really realize, one of the writers had told me, I write stuff for you, but it gets cut and taken out. And to me, once I heard that, I go, okay, you answered the question without answering the question. Only one person can change creative, and that's Vince. So if Vince doesn't like me, what am I doing here? Right? I've already been here twice, a total of 5 years. If he doesn't like me now, you know what? I'm in my mid-30s. I got to get out of here. I got to go and I got to show everyone what I have to give for the fans. And so I quit and I left and I went back to TNA and did my stuff with Taryn on the second back run, and just, have stayed there ever since, and I've made a career out of it. So
how long were you in WWE when you left?
3 years. I did 3 years the second time.
You did 3 years the first time.
No, 2 years the first time, got fired. 3 years the second time. 3 years the second time, quit.
Yeah. So I heard a story. I don't know if there's any truth in it. You ran this match and you got pissed off and you just left. Is that true?
No, this is the way. So the Battle Royal was the last match I had there. And at this point, every week, it was like going to Gorilla, getting our time cut, because it was a live show, it was Raw. We'd always be the first ones to get our time cut. So it's literally like a 3-minute match, if that, maybe 2-minute match. You can't tell a story in that time. We didn't hardly have storylines. They're just trying to squeeze all the girls all in one segment all the time. We'd be going out there doing 4-on-4, 5-on-5 matches, like 10-girl matches where people weren't even getting in. And when we're doing segments to the point where the girls are saying at Gorilla, just cut our segment. Like, to the point, if the girls are saying cut our segment, that means we don't even want to be on TV, Dutch. Yeah. That's how it was. We're like, we don't want to go there. They don't even care because we're out there for 2 minutes. We can't even tell a story. So then that was pretty much kind of, my deal was up in, like, say 2 months at that point. And our Battle Royal kept on getting cut. And then I think it was Dustin at that time. Dustin was our agent, Goldust. And he said something like, oh, you guys got your time cut. First 5 girls need to get eliminated within the first 2 minutes. So I was like, oh, screw this. Like, I'm done with this company. And I always tell this story again, because some people will say I acted unprofessional. I only did that because I knew it was in the first front 2 minutes of the match, number one. I was like, they're not even going to care. They're not going to notice. They don't give a shit about the girls. I was like, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to roll out of the ring because they said we need to get out of the ring in the first 2 minutes. And to be honest, they didn't care. They didn't even notice. I think 1 or 2 people noticed, and they didn't even care. So that just shows what the state of the division was at that time. And now it has changed for the better. They're main eventing Manias. The women there are killing it. Like, they're doing so well. This is all I ever wanted for women's wrestling, and it's happening.
So we had the right idea.
Yeah, we had the right idea. We did.
And people wouldn't even talk to me about it. Yeah. They say, "Oh, brother, what are you smoking?" or whatever.
Yeah.
I said, "No, I'm serious about it, But and nobody would even Dixie Carter, the owner of the company, you would think she would be supportive of females. She didn't even want to hear it.
I know.
Unless it was Hogan or Sting or somebody that she had seen on TV before. Regular girl, I think she was jealous of you girls. I really, really do.
We added this in the show.
Yeah. Don't edit that out. Leave that in. I don't give a crap. But she wasn't the only female there that attention was being. Remember, she would come to every TV taping and she would sit out there and they would show her almost every show and she would wave or whatever. But when there was other females around, I don't know. I don't think she much liked that. So that's
Well,
probably why she didn't like my idea.
well, maybe it's also, I'm gonna try to give the benefit of the doubt to everyone at that time. That maybe because there wasn't strong women's wrestling, people just didn't believe that there could be. Because I remember even when I wanted it and I kept on begging for it, other female wrestlers would tell me, Gail, fans hate women's wrestling. It's the bathroom break. And I'd be like, I absolutely cannot believe you're saying this. And I don't believe it. And I refuse to believe it. And I think you're wrong. Right. So it's always a constant proving of ourselves.
Well, I'll give the benefit of the doubt of the girls that told you that. Maybe during their matches, it was a bathroom break.
Maybe.
So that just makes you stand out more, because if they're going to stand and watch you and Kong, which I would do,
Yeah.
I'd watch your every match, because I don't know, you guys just had a connectivity with each other
We
that
did.
just like waves would hit you like these girls hate each other. And of course, your size and her size, it was like David and Goliath. So
It's a mutual respect of we both, whether we came from two different places, but we both had something to prove, and we had to show that we were good enough and that women's wrestling was good enough to continue through, right? We just kept on hoping for that next step, and just to keep it going, and
okay, were you in WWE when Kong went there?
for a minute. So I was already there. Then they brought her in and they started filming her vignettes. And I remember they were starting to push her. She was coming out to destroy everyone. So whether it was live events or TV, she'd come out after every match, that after her vignettes.
What a bunch of copycats. They just copied what we did in TNA. They'll have some ideas of your own, WWE.
I mean, but then she ended up getting pregnant, so they didn't finish. But Dutch, I was supposed to be the next one that she was going to lay out. Oh my God. I remember going, it's happening. I'm the next one. And I was kind of sad because I felt like it was going to erase our history, like they were going to rewrite our history. But then she got pregnant right before she was supposed to take me out, and I was supposed to be her first singles match. And I just remember them trying to tell me, oh, well, you should be excited. It's her first singles match. And I'm like, yeah, I know what that means. That means first squash match. Like, I'm not dumb, people, right?
So they were watching our show.
They denied it. So
of course they denied it.
They denied. So I said, I did call them out on it.
Did they deny it really?
I asked one of the writers, and I asked Johnny too. I asked them both. I said something about me and Kong, and they both played dumb, and they're like, oh, I haven't seen it. And I go, so then why did you rehire me, and why did you hire her?
Yeah.
Not because we're just, two indie girls out there.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they lie. I will say that they will totally emit or omit truths and facts, so they didn't want you to know.
There was just a different system back then too. I don't think they were allowed to say anything.
Yeah, they did have some different rules there, but now I do like the way WWE now is. They can actually say wrestling on the show now.
Yeah, I mean,
they couldn't say it before. Oh no, don't say wrestling. Don't say that, sports entertainment. Yeah. Okay, Vince, whatever.
I think it's gotten much better recently, as of late.
The show has gotten much better because James can tell you. James, how much do I talk about story? If you got a story, if you have a story, you can get through a lot where the work isn't pure. Mm-hmm. I mean, how did handsome Jimmy Valiant sell out? He don't know a wrist lock from a wristwatch, but he told this story. People wanted to see him, and the crowd would sell out because they told a story and they wanted to see handsome Jimmy. I mean, this business is really unique, and I don't understand it. I try to, but I don't think anybody understands it. But it's like trying to get two talents to tell the story. we've got to say, okay, you got to do this. And WWE is now doing that. Like they will stop and they'll put the camera on somebody's face where they just turn and look. That tells a lot. So it's like you're reading the story. And so Kong, she went back to WWE. You guys never got together because she got pregnant. And she didn't have that baby, did she?
She never had the baby. I think the baby didn't make it from, I think. I'd want you to ask her because I don't know the specifics.
That's what I heard. I wouldn't ask her that anyway, but I was very saddened about that because I think she would be a fantastic mother.
Yeah.
She would be a hovering a helicopter mother.
Yes, she would.
Over that baby.
Hey all, we'll get back to Dutch and Gail Kim in a minute, but right now we are going to talk about Keeps. So for all you fellas out there with a thinning thatch and worrying about hair loss, Keeps is here to help. You can get professional care for hair loss through Keeps without having to deal with the indignity of going to the doctors or the pharmacy by simply filling in an online questionnaire, and a medical professional will send you a tailor-made plan for your circumstances right to your address in discreet packaging with options for 3, 6 and 12-month plans you can cancel at any time. So 2 out of 3 chaps deal with genetic hair loss by the time they are 35, but Keeps offers both FDA scientifically approved options to combat hair loss, as well as hair thickening shampoos to complement your treatment plan and support hair growth, with most men noticing a difference within 6 months of continual use. With over 5,000 5-star reviews and 1 million men treated over the past 6 years, Keeps is offering Storytime with Dutch Mantell listeners a special offer by clicking the link in the description and pinned comment, or using the QR code on your screen. Thanks to Keeps for sponsoring this episode, and now back to Dutch and Gail Kim.
Okay, you went into the Hall of Fame of Impact.
Yeah, Impact Hall of Fame. Yeah,
and so I didn't hear it, but somebody said you mentioned my name during that.
Of course, I did.
Well, great.
Of course, I mentioned. Yeah, I thanked everyone. Part of, the part of my career that made me accept that Hall of Fame honor. I mean, I was without TNA, without those opportunities, I would never have had the career. Like if I did stay in WWE, a lot of people, this is why I always tell a lot of wrestlers out there, if they do have that work ethic, if they truly do believe in themselves, you got to bet on yourself sometimes, because
you do.
This business is just, you got to hope for that opportunity that maybe someone else will see it in you, because look at my 2 careers in one company over the other. They're night and day. I mean, if I stayed in WWE that whole time, I would never have even had remotely the career that it'd be nothing. Probably. I would not be a producer in TNA to this day. Right. You just got to bet on yourself.
How did you and Kong gel so quickly?
Oh, I don't know.
Hey, when I saw the match you had with her on TV, that was the first match?
Yeah, first time we ever touched, first time we ever saw each other or felt each other in terms of work. We just clicked. And like I said, I think it was at a time, and she just came from Japan where all the girls kicked each other's butts with no hesitation. I never had a hesitation. I was waiting. So I just worked Jackie Moore, who is one of the most physical wrestlers.
Yes, she is.
Probably the strongest wrestler I've ever been in the ring with, to be honest. She's probably shorter than me, 5'3", maybe 5'2". And she is strong as hell and tough as nails. And that girl, so for
James,
me,
you know who she is?
Yeah, Miss Texas, of course I do. Jackie Moore,
yeah.
Go from Jackie to Kong. I mean, back to back, the 2 baddest women I've ever been in the ring with, probably, and Taryn too, who's underestimated because she's this pretty blonde that played cheerleader Tiffany or whatever she was called in, or Tiffany. What did they call her? Something skirt.
Tiffany Stafford.
No, not that girl. She's now
another girl.
Talking about Tiffany Terrell from way back.
Tiffany, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't remember her last name though.
So I just think we just kind of went balls to the wall because we had something to prove, and so no one was going to say anything. I mean, to this day, I think the girls beat the crap out of each other just to prove something. And We always got to
Okay,
be.
if I had came into the room, I said, girls, I want you to go out there and throw down.
Yeah.
But you have to do it.
Yeah.
You got to go out there and you got to want to do it.
Yes.
And you got to tell the other girl, hey, bring it, and I'm going to bring it. Yeah. So if you're both bringing it, I can talk till I'm blue in the face, or the producer can talk till he's blue in the face. But when you guys go out there and do it and the fans see it and they get a taste of it, they're watching. Because I watched that match. Every time you guys would be in a match where I could watch, the fans weren't watching any. They weren't going to the concession stand. They were watching you guys. So I always believe that you said bet on yourself. I didn't call it that, but you believed in yourself that you could hold their attention for 15 minutes. You actually could have held their attention for 30 minutes if you want to, maybe an hour longer.
We would do whatever we had to do, Dutch, to prove ourselves.
And not a lot of girls can do that. Okay, let's say this. You're back in working condition now.
Mm-hmm.
And you could go back. Who would you want to have a match with?
Go back or current?
No, I'm saying if you was in a position where you could restart and looking at the landscape now, who would you want to have a match with?
Landscape now? Oh my God, there's just too many women right now. Like there's just so many women I'd want to wrestle right now. I mean, just in my own, like just in our company alone, just the girls that there's a handful of them. Jordynne obviously is one that's on top of her game right now. Jordynne Grace in our company, the Knockouts champion. She just did the Royal Rumble for WWE. I mean, she's so good.
She underwent a body transformation, right?
Yeah, she really did. And
I was just watching her on Twitter, X.
Yeah.
And I saw her before, and then I saw her a couple of months later. I went, well, my God.
I literally
watched her. She totally sculpted herself.
She did. And not just that, she sculpted her everything. Like she really did. At first, she was kind of stubborn to, what we had to teach her. And then she took that one little thing and then she grew from there. And now I'm just like, okay, Jordynne, tell me what you got, and she's one of the ones I can definitely, she's always reliable, always the one that's going to have the 5-star matches. There's a lot of great, like Deanna just left us. She went to AEW. Deanna was amazing too, like WWE, look at Charlotte, Bailey, Io, Bianca. There's so many people. I mean, this is what's so great. This is what I hope for in 2007, that I could name 10 women or more in 2024 that I want to wrestle, and I can't decide who I want to wrestle because they're all that darn good. It's
how okay. That Grace girl, what's her name? Jordynne
Grace.
Gordon. Where's she from?
She lives in Atlanta, I think now, or I don't know where she's from originally, but
tell me a little bit about her background. So she is noticeable.
Yeah, she told
Very
me
noticeable.
She started wrestling when she was like 13 years old. I mean, so young. I'm just shocked that people are allowed to start at that young age. I don't think anyone should start wrestling, honestly, till the age of 18 minimum, and people are starting younger and younger these days. It's just like, it's not about the physical part. It's about the mental part of this business that I think people need to mature a little bit. And it's a lot, it's a very worldly job. You're going to go hit the road, pay your dues, and you got to be careful, especially as, and then I already lost this is what happens when you're a wrestler too. You lose your train of
Jordynne Grace, where she came from.
Yeah. So she, 13 years
that's from being hit on the head a couple 100,000 times. I say it all the time. I'll be talking about a guy and ask James, what's that guy's name again? He said, oh, yeah, we're talking about here. Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that every once in a while. And so she is now she's been wrestling. She's probably late 20s, I think now. And so she's been wrestling probably half her life. So she should be good by now. And she is very good now. I mean, she's very much the cream of the crop of today's wrestling. You know, obviously, Dutch, you know, wrestling has changed a lot over the years, where people will say probably when we're talking about storytelling that we're so old and passe.
Oh yeah, they're talking about telling those
Oh, they're so
dinosaurs. Get
old.
them out of there.
And you know what?
But
there are ways to meet in the middle, but I do
there
believe
is.
Structure of wrestling, ultimately, what makes you successful, the storytelling, all those little things on the bottom line is what will always be true to wrestling that will make you a success. You can't just get by on these wrestling moves that are train wrecks and whatever. People are going
How many times have they seen them?
Exactly, right? So they don't.
How many times have they seen an arm drag, a drop kick, a leapfrog, a hip toss, a this? How many times can they see them? But a story, you tell the story and slow down. That's why the bloodline has lasted so long. They've told this story in increments, a little bit at a time, never overloading you too much. And then, of course, they would get to some pay-per-views. Oh, God, what are they going to do now? Yeah, they got to readjust. 2 weeks later, they've readjusted. They're back right in the same spot they are.
You can still do wrestling with it. Just sprinkle it in there, you know. I just think there's a happy medium, but I enjoy a little bit of both.
Okay, you're talking about WWE giving you 2 minutes for the match or getting out of the ring in 2 minutes.
Yeah, that used to be
Roman Reigns. It takes him 5 minutes to walk to the ring.
Yes.
And then I bet it's 6 minutes before he starts talking. But that gives the commentators time to, well, you can't understand them anyway. They're going 90 miles a minute, but you know the story.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Impact just underwent a change of ownership.
Yes.
Correct?
Well, no, never changed to ownership. We just changed management. So Scott D'Amore is just out of the picture now. The ownership.
And same people own it, but they made a change.
Yes.
What caused that, I wonder?
I'm not sure the exact details of what caused it. But I do think now, you know, Scott did bring us, he was there for a long time and he brought us out of, there was a period of time, I feel like with the fans that TNA was just, you know, people wanted to hate us for years at one point. It was kind of, we're kind of making ourselves digging out of this black hole of fans who just wanted to hate us without even watching us or giving us a chance.
You mean there's wrestling fans like that? Oh my God. I haven't met one.
And then slowly over time, you know, I feel like we started turning it around, you know, slowly turning it around. And now we just had a change of management again, early this year in 2024. And honestly, Dutch, it's been nothing but positive. It's been really good and positive. Sometimes you just got to make business a priority on the back end right here, because really ultimately at the end of the day, wrestling is a business and we keep the integrity of what our wrestling is and was, and we have been doing that, and everything has been really good, really positive.
I'm going to write TNA myself and tell them they should give you a new job.
What's my new job?
Public relations.
Oh,
I said, let her do the other job and let her do public relations too, and you'll have a double winner.
Yes, I do talent relations. Is that close enough?
That is close. That's pretty good. So who does the booking now?
So I'd say it's a compilation of like the creative team along with the people in Anthem that have stepped up in terms of the business aspect. There's a lot more voices going on in terms of, because booking really is creative, and there's a lot more voices being kind of contributing to that process. But you know, we have the same creative team we had before, so it's not like we lost the structure or the bottom line of what the creative was or is. It's the same. Yeah, and just kind of the same thing in terms of talent. We kind of, you know, wrestling's always kind of a revolving door within all the companies. WWE just released a bunch of talent, which always, you know, whenever any company releases talent, it kind of changes flows of each other, the other companies. So I think it's good.
So where does TNA do their TV?
So now we're doing our TVs randomly wherever we go. Like the next one is in Albany. Yeah, we did really great in Albany last time, so I'm happy to be going back there. The crowd was really good. We did Bound for Glory there last year. And then we're hitting like Philly. We're going to Montreal for Slammiversary. Just hitting different markets, pretty much. Chicago again.
But didn't TNA do their TV locally in
Orlando?
Some studio in Nashville?
In Nashville, we did it during COVID mostly because it was just difficult during COVID for everyone, I think.
I thought Scott was doing a pretty decent job, really. I'd watch the show every now and then. Pretty good show. I mean, it had room for improvement, I thought. But it was a good show, it really was. So what was Scott's attitude when they took him out? I know he was disappointed. He had to be, but
yeah, disappointed. I don't think anyone is ever happy about losing their job. But Scott's got a lot of things going on in his life outside of wrestling that he's going to be just fine. So,
well, good. I like him. I really do. There's one more thing I was going to ask you. Okay, let me ask you this. Here's another girl that's been in TNA, that's kind of been in the headlines lately. Oh. Tessa Blanchard.
Oh, I did read that recently.
Wait a minute. Well, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Okay, what is her deal? What's going on with her? This has been going on for 5 years or so.
I know. All I know about Tessa is that she is very loyal to CMLL. That's where she is currently. Kind of been wrestling there the last couple of years. I did talk to her. I think in this last couple of months, I think I just touched base and see how she was doing and everything. And she seems like she's doing good. All the details of her controversial story, I am not really sure where that is left at. I don't know I probably know as much as you, Dutch, what I read online, right? So, you kind of hear rumors.
I believe it all. The more negative it is, the more I'm going to read it and chop into it. See, when I started podcasting, I'd go out there and put people over and do this and do that. But I found out that the more negative you are, the more money you make, because the people, they run to the negative.
It's
Dutch says Scott D'Amore was a good booker. Nobody wants to read that shit.
Oh no! What's going to be the clickbait article on this one?
Oh, I don't know. We'll find something.
I'm sure
we'll turn your words around and do something. I'm
so happy.
Here's a question.
Yes.
I've been reading about this guy, and you may not even know who he is.
Okay.
He worked at Stardom in Japan.
Okay.
And his name is Rossy Ogawa.
Yes. Yeah, he started.
Do you know him or of him?
I know of him. Yes. So he started a new promotion.
Yeah. Tell me about the Stardom.
So Stardom, as far as I know,
an all-girls promotion, correct?
Promotion, a very, I would say it's now very established, to the point of, everyone knows that's where the hottest Japanese up-and-comers are going to be part of, or a lot of our hot American indie girls as well will be over there working for Stardom. A couple of my friends who are in the business who work have had experiences there. People I know right now are going over there, but I know some people are going to work for Rossy right now in his new promotion. So it'll be interesting to see how the new promotion does with this old Stardom promoter, right? And how that affects the business. Because
okay, catch me up here. He still has Stardom?
No, there's a new.
He's all brand new now.
All now starting a whole new promotion. And I don't remember what it's called. Do you know?
Marigold is called.
Marigold. James knows everything.
Yeah.
Well, I may have to compile all the news for you to react to, Dutch. That's how I know.
Yeah. But the story on him, from what I gather, is he uses really, really young girls.
Okay.
14 years old, maybe 13. So I don't know how I feel about that, but that's their business.
Yeah. You know, like I said, in general, whether it's a female or male, I always feel like you need to be mentally prepared for this business. And even at 18, I'm just saying 18 because that's when you become an adult legally. Because I started at 23 and I still felt like it was very hard to take mentally and emotionally. At least getting thrown into WWE as my first major company, I was like, whoa, oh, this was,
you took a hell of a chance.
Yeah.
By going for, you went to college, 2 colleges, right?
I did. I didn't finish though. Like I started at University of Toronto and then I transferred to another college in second year or in my third year because I was like, okay, maybe I want to do something else. And then
tell me this. What did your mom
and dad, I shouldn't say that.
What did your mom and dad say when you told them?
I didn't tell them.
You didn't tell them?
My parents were very traditional Korean parents. They said, go to university, because in Toronto, or sorry, in Canada, they call it university more than college. Okay. There's college and university. It's kind of complicated to explain, but they're like, go to university, become a doctor or a lawyer, and marry a doctor or lawyer. Those were my options. Okay. So once I went to college, I was like, okay. And then when I knew I wanted to go to wrestling school, I took my tuition money that they provided and I was like, oh, I'm going to use it towards wrestling school and I'll tell them when I make it so that they won't get mad that I wasted the tuition money on wrestling school.
Oh, that's a great story.
So then I never told them. Never told them. And then when I made it.
Wait a minute, they know now, right?
They know now, but they never sold it. They never sold it, Dutch. I don't think I even had the official talk. It was just like, yeah, I'm going to move to Louisville, Kentucky, and I made it, and I'm signed with this WWE company. And my parents are like, huh? Right? What? And then next thing they know, they see me on TV and they can't, I don't even know if they watched me, to be honest. I think they watched me once or twice.
That is the damnedest story I think I've ever heard. It really is.
I know, it's pretty crazy.
I've never heard a story even remotely similar to that story like that.
Because Asian families are not close, like they're not affectionate or close. I never grew up saying to my parents, oh, I love you, I miss you. Like that's just not a normal thing in Asian families. Yeah. Like get good grades and be a good kid. Like that was, that was my life. So,
and that is most of the Asian people.
Yeah,
the Japanese and Koreans and all. Wow. Yeah. I never heard that story. That might be some clickbait for us. We got to tell that story. We got to get it out there.
Asian families are cold.
Okay, how long you been married?
Now, so our anniversary is coming up. My mother-in-law just told us because she always reminds us every year, hey, your anniversary is coming up. We're hitting our 12-year marriage, 12-year wedding anniversary.
Well, congratulations. I read that and I said, well, good for her.
Yeah.
Now, he has a syndicated TV show, right?
Yes.
Robert Irvine.
Yeah. Irvine, yes.
Irvine. And I said, wait a minute, I've heard of him.
Yeah.
How did you meet him?
So, and I always said I was meant to go back to WWE the second time because that's when I met him. So WWE and his show had a joint show. So they did a special with like, his show at that time was called Dinner Impossible and he had to make, it's like a challenge show. So he did SummerSlam and he had to feed the VIP party and make 20 wrestling dishes or 20 appetizer dishes and name them after wrestling moves. And so I was one of 6 wrestlers that helped him on that day. And we just clicked and that was history too.
Well, that's what happened. You guys click. How long after that before you guys got together and how long after that did you get married?
Oh boy, 3 years after.
3 years? Wow. Well, congratulations. You know, Gail, since I've had this little talk with you,
Yeah,
you're truly blessed.
I am blessed. I'm very blessed.
You really are. You agree, James?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's like, yeah.
Yeah, he says, James should say, well, maybe some things she could have done. But I'm glad that you're happy. I'm thrilled that you came on the show.
Me too.
And I'm glad we had this little talk because I think this has been one of our most productive interviews. Wouldn't you say, James?
Yeah, absolutely. Gail,
James,
before
you got any questions?
I
Got
do-
any questions?
I do have a question, Gail, or two, if you'd indulge me.
Yeah, of course.
And I did have it, and then I completely forgot what it was. Yeah, that's what it was.
Wrestling brain fart.
It's 10 p.m. here. I'm flying out to Japan tomorrow, so I'm panicking about that. I'm not a good flyer, so that's stressing me out. Anyway, so you've said, all through your career, you wanted women's wrestling to get to the point that it is now. So today you've got everyone from Toni Storm and Julia Hart in AEW, and everyone, Charlotte Flair and blah blah blah, everyone. What year do you think it got to that point that you were happy with the state of women's wrestling? And I've got a follow-up question after that I'll ask you. But what year, or maybe what storyline, or what kicked it off to the point where you thought we've finally made it in North America?
I will probably say when I really noticed was probably because, in all actuality and reality, WWE is the company, right? It's been around the longest. It is the biggest, most successful wrestling company we've had. So when they main evented the girls at WrestleMania, that was kind of okay, you know what? It's happened now. Like, they main evented the biggest wrestling show that exists. So, and now it's like a normal thing now. That is what makes me happy. Like, that's not even a surprise, and people are happy to hear it now, but it's not a surprising thing anymore. People are kind of expecting it out of certain matches now, which is nice to see. Yeah.
And the second part is, and I hate to say it, I'm really ambivalent about Ronda Rousey, because I was a huge Ronda Rousey fan in UFC and when she first got to WWE. And then she had the second run and she put people off, I think, at some point. But what do you think of Ronda Rousey, as much as you've watched it, and was she good for wrestling as a whole?
I love what she did for women's wrestling. Like, even when the Diva search happened, when it first came in, and I got fired because of the girls that came in. I literally got fired, me, Nitty, and Jazz, and they brought in Christy Hemme, Joy, and Christy Hemme is my best friend to this day. Okay. So I never once blamed the girls for that opportunity. Who's not going to take that opportunity? Right. And to this day, Christy Hemme is one of the most passionate people I know about women's wrestling. So, Ronda, I never felt any ill will towards her being given this opportunity. She brought so many mainstream eyes to women's wrestling and wrestling in general. And to be honest, I love her, how vocal she is. Like, I used to be so vocal, and now I'm kind of in a different position. I'm not a talent anymore. So I've learned to, and I've grown up a lot, right? So you kind of weigh your options of what you say. And I'm a little envious of how vocal she can be, because that's truly my nature. I love how strong of a woman she is. The things that turned her off, or people were turned off by, what were those things? Because even when I'm thinking now, what are those things that turned people off? That she was vocal? I don't know.
I think she may have mocked wrestling fans, or I think she took booing to heart. So when some wrestling fans would boo, I think she took that to heart a bit too much, and people picked up on that.
Okay. In that case, like, I wasn't aware of that, right? So I could see that her coming from MMA to come to pro wrestling. And some people do the transition quite nicely, like a Kurt Angle, he is like the perfect, to me, probably one of the greatest of all time. Not probably, he is one of the greatest of all time. I can understand. I'm very 50-50 on that, because I can understand why she took it to heart. But then, yeah, she's got to understand the business. But she honestly didn't really even have a lot of time. She was thrown into this huge company to the top of the pile. And so you're going to learn as quickly as possible, but in all actuality, a lot of the things about our business take time to learn and for you to understand.
Yes, but they dropped her in right off the bat.
Yeah. So
she didn't have time to learn anything.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, you're right.
And I see a lot of
I'm gonna ask, you got any more questions, James?
You carry on, Dutch.
No, I'm just gonna say.
Oh,
I mean, the answer is yeah. I've got loads more, but you carry on, Dutch.
Yeah, but I want to get this in before it gets too late.
Okay, go ahead.
The Mount Rushmore of women's wrestling. 4 people. Who would you choose?
For me, Molly Holly is easy for me. Number 1. God, someone just asked me this the other day, and I was like, "Oh, it's so hard." Molly Holly is easy for me. What are you deciding?
No, I'm just saying, in your estimation, you can go back for 50 years, whatever you want.
Why don't we narrow it down then? Of women that you've worked with.
Oh, okay. Women that I've worked with. Okay. I mean, it all depends on what you're talking about, but I'm going to just go off of accomplishments then, or their whole career. Or Molly Holly to me is an easy one because that's the one that I look up to in the ring, outside of the ring. She gave me my opportunity, and that's the last reason why I'm putting her on that.
How did she get you the opportunity? Because Dutch just told me off air as well that he booked Molly in Puerto Rico, which I had no idea as well.
I met her at WrestleMania Fan Access. I was still a student of the game. My wrestling school had a table at a Fan Access giving out flyers for our wrestling school. And one of the guys that was part of my wrestling school had already been through the system, developmental, but he did just like impersonations. So he was in WWF, and Jason Sensation was his name. And so he knew Molly from Memphis wrestling. What was their developmental. So we're looking through the Diva magazine at that time because they used to do these modeling magazines. And I was like, "Oh, she's my favorite." And he goes, "Oh, I know Nora or Molly." And he's like, "You want me to call her?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to die." And then I met her. She was like, "You look different," because they had no Asian women at the time. Why don't you give me your video? At that time, it was VHS. That's how I'm showing my age. Why don't you give me your video or pictures? And we had a little like a paper envelope to give to her to try out. Nowadays, it's like Google Drives. All right. And then that was the year WCW got bought out. And so she said, just let that die out for a little bit. And then I got a call sometime during the summer, got my tryout, and I got signed. Like just everything was, yeah. So, I mean, obviously Trish and Lita are 2 very accomplished people. They were the first 2 that really blew up. I mean, in China, I mean, I never worked in China though. So, Kong, I mean, the people I worked with, those are probably the top 4 then for sure. I would say it's hard to say. Yeah.
What was your question, James?
That was it. I'll ask another if you like.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. When you were watching Gail, because I think we were probably watching around the same time, when you started watching the Attitude Era, like everybody started watching the Attitude Era.
Watch the Attitude Era.
Yeah. I'm sorry, sorry?
I never watched the Attitude Era.
You're kidding. So you just went from Hogan to... Well, there you go. That's...
Ruthless Aggression Era.
Okay, I fell out during the Ruthless Aggression Era.
Oh, that's so funny.
Because I know I was in the Let's Express era when I started watching.
Everyone is always shocked because Attitude Era was the most watched era. I think it was just like when wrestling exploded.
I am trying to think of another follow-up question now. Okay, I've got another one for you. When you went back to TNA, Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan, how did the power structure change? How did the company change as compared to your first run in TNA?
They were already there. They had just come in maybe a month before, maybe 2 months before. And it's kind of back to back the way it happened. So for me, it was just normal. I just walked in and it was like, to be honest, in TNA, we kind of went through a couple of management regimes. And so nothing ever felt abnormal to me. I was just walking into another situation. just hoping that I could just come back to wrestle again. And I did. You know, and I actually thought that second time because once I left for WWE and then I came back, I really, even though I left on good terms, I thought I was going to get punished for leaving, right? I remember thinking, okay, what am I going to have to, I'm going to have to eat shit here for a while. And Vince Russo just wrote me back in and very nicely. And I won the title pretty much very quickly. I was like, okay. I actually felt kind of awkward for winning the title when I came back. It was the tag title. So I felt like, oh, I don't want to come back. And, you know, it's just all these weird feelings of when you come back or when you leave. And even when I won the title on my debut in WWE, I was so green. I didn't even, and I'm happy I didn't know. After the fact, people said to me, oh, weren't you afraid of all the heat you were going to get in the locker room for winning the title on your first day? And I go, oh, I didn't even know. Would I have gotten heat for that? Like I had no clue. I'm kind of glad I was so green that I didn't even know, because then I would have been paranoid and didn't know. So yeah, rather just be deer in headlights, I guess.
Did you ever meet Chelsea Green?
Oh, I worked with her, yes, for many, many years. Yeah.
Good girl. Good girl. And
So
I think you and her would gel.
I think we wrestled each other. We have wrestled each other. I was there for her very first tryout with TNA, and I wrestled with her and I produced her. And then she went on to WWE this last time, and she's great. She's one of the most entertaining females I've ever seen out there.
She is. I had her in TNA, and we gave her the wedding.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Where she was stood up at the altar.
Yes.
Oh my God. And the story just wrote itself. And we had her in the back and she was breaking down in tears. What happened? I don't know. Then we tried to interview her, and she was talking about a lost puppy she had seen. She was just out of it. Then the next week, she was still in the back crying. And then I swear we did about 3 weeks with it. And then they come up, well, we got to do another gimmick with her. I went, wait a minute. Well, I don't have time. We can't change it right now.
She wore that wedding dress until it was pretty much, it went from white to black. It was that
No
dirty.
kidding. I said, I wanted, that's what I told them. No, we need it's not appealing. I says, well, I like it and everybody else seems to like it. So I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, we took her out of it, killed the gimmick, killed her too. So
Dutch,
she's doing great.
You know, whenever you talk about Impact when you were there for like 2017, unless you're talking about Chelsea Green, every single thing you say is, I don't remember I was in catering.
Well, but things I like, I remember.
Yes.
But when people ask me about that time, I say, it's just regular bullshit that don't mean nothing. So I was in catering doing most of it. And somebody says something happened now, whatever, straighten it out.
We forget a lot.
That's where I would spend most of my time. But anyway, James, any more questions so we can let this young lass go?
No,
enjoy her life.
We've enjoyed you very much, Gail. I could ask a million different questions, but I don't want to take up any more of your time.
I cleared out my day for you guys.
Oh, good. Right, I'm going to ask you another question then.
Yeah.
A fan actually wrote this in. Please ask Gail Kim if she thought Roxxi Laveaux should have been cut from the TNA knockouts. At the time, WWE were doing bra and panties matches. Roxy was doing hardcore matches. She had a fantastic ladder match with you. She took a wicked chair shot from Awesome Kong. I think, because someone else wrote roughly the same thing, she was doing so much, like really putting the effort in. I think she had her head shaved, and then TNA fired her. So what's the whole story with that?
So Roxy actually left TNA while I was back in WWE. So I don't really know the reasoning of why she left. I've always highly respected her. She was one of the 5 girls that were actually part of our women's division, pre-division. She came in to work with Billy Gunn and Road Dogg, remember, as Roxy. That was the Voodoo Mafia or whatever it was called. I love her. I don't know why she left. And I know that she had lost her passion at some point. And her name gets brought up still to this day, where people just love her and respect her. And listen, everyone feels the same way about her. So it's always just sad when people, they get disenchanted with the business at some point, whether it's not being used or I don't know if that's the case with her. I don't know what happened after. But I love her. I think she was great. She should have been, was she never a champion? I don't think she was ever a champion with us.
No,
She,
I don't think so.
yeah, she
Let
definitely.
let me ask you something. Who was the girl
Mhm.
that sued TNA and about 50 people in TNA? You remember what you know, James?
I know she sued over 1,000 people.
What's her name?
You torture me.
remember.
I can't remember. She was really tall. She was black. She was
Her last name was
6'2".
Khan.
Rhaka Khan. Rhaka Khan?
Rhaka Khan.
Yes.
Rhaka Khan. Did
Oh, I
you
didn't
get
know-
sued?
Oh, I didn't know about this.
you
I'm
know-
glad I didn't get sued.
Did you know her?
I worked with her.
Okay.
I was there when she was Scott Steiner's, when we tried to
Yes.
make her like his freak, basically. Yeah.
Oh, I liked her. I mean,
I know
like
you
Rhaka
did. I
Khan.
remember
I mean, not
you were-
Rhaka Khan. I liked the Steiner. Rhaka Khan, when I heard about the suit, I went, what is she suing for? And it just I started reading the suit and it got more outlandish and more outlandish. I said, I don't know why I haven't been sued too. She sued. How many people did she sue, James?
It was 1,000 people. She sued The Rock. She sued Chris Benoit, who hasn't been around for quite a while. She sued the state of Texas.
Oh,
She
something.
sued universities, schools, nurseries, the police forces. Jim Cornette, I know he sued. She sued. Anyway, it's for $3 billion, and it didn't go very far.
No.
I've never heard any of this before. This is the first I've ever heard.
I had an attorney call me from Dallas one time, a TNA attorney, and he had a long, drawn out Southern accent. He said, now, Dutch, that girl you calling her Rhaka Khan? Yeah. We might get in trouble over that because it could be confused with Shaka Khan. I mean, get the hell out of here. You don't know the damn difference. I didn't tell him that, but I said, well, I'll look into it, and never heard from him again. Then the next thing I hear that Rhaka Khan had sued everybody. Did you sue Vince Russo, James?
I've got a list here. New Mexico Police Department, the NYPD, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, New York, just New York. A fraternity, The Miz, Heath Miller, Nikki Bella, Chris Benoit, somehow, Mark Jindrak, Panda Energy, Home Depot, Florida Championship Wrestling, Steve Kern, the NWA, Billy Corgan, Deep South Wrestling, that's also defunct, Bank of America, Michael Jordan, the basketball player, several universities, Jim Cornette, Mick Foley, New York City Area Energy Company, and others.
That's enough. See, that's the business, Gail, you wanted to get into, and you got into it. So tell everybody goodbye, Mr. James, and let's let this girl get out of here.
Well, before we do, Gail, do you want to throw out some TNA plugs as well? How could we not? Or anything else you want to get out there?
Definitely check out tnawrestling.com for wherever we're going to be next. Our next show is in Albany, New York. We're going to have Under Siege there on next Friday. And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at Gail Kim. It's me.
Did you see Eric Young at TNA Rebellion? Was it last week or last weekend, the pay-per-view, or the weekend before? And his ear went when he went through the table.
On the finish.
What happened?
Did you see that in the dressing room? Was it bad?
I saw it from the monitor in the back. Yeah, I was watching it from the back.
Woo.
Yeah.
Well, I hope he's okay. Anyway, he's a good guy. He really is.
He got some stitches at the hospital that night. So,
all right. Gail, many thanks for joining us today. I enjoyed it. Sometimes I interview somebody and I just ask questions. James just asked, but I actually enjoyed this one. So, and I learned some things I didn't know before.
Yeah, that's cool.
Did you learn anything, James?
Yeah, absolutely. Were you taking a shot at Kenny Bolin then? When you just said you just asked
taking
questions?
a shot?
Yeah.
I don't take shots at Kenny Bolin. I can't miss. Hard to miss 360 pounds. So, but anyway. So Gail, you be good. Take care of yourself.
It's meeting you.
Tell your husband I said hello. And he said, who said hello? I don't even know him. She said, well, he did it out of courtesy. But you tell him hello and you enjoy yourself.
Well, happy and congratulations to your 100th episode.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dutch, we the people.
We the people.